Hi there, and welcome back to part 12 of History of Fleetwood Mac Singles. I'm Anita. Today we are going to be doing the second half of Bella Donna, that's inclusive of Edge of 17 and After the Glitter Fades singles. Not too many, kind of a small stack left of that. We're just going to go into some Lindsey Buckingham, I think. I'm going to try and get most of this out in one video if possible. There's quite a bit of Lindsey, but I think I can wipe that out in one video, so let's give it a whirl. So, continuing where we left off last time, there was the third single of Bella Donna, which was Edge of 17, which came out February 5th, 1982. So, just a little while after the album had come out. Not quite a year, but getting on a year. And the first release we have from that is from the United States with this beautiful cover shot, again by Herbert Worthington. One of the more not famous shots series of Stevie, but there's quite a bit with the feather headdress that was really popular amongst the fans. This series of photos, and Stevie Nicks brought a lot of these images back out for her 24 karat gold, I believe, or Crystal Visions. Pardon me, Crystal Visions album. A lot of the images, a lot more. But yeah, this first graced the sleeve of Edge of 17, and this one is just a standard single, nothing impressive. It is backed with Edge of 17 live version, which was from the HBO special, the Bella Donna on Tour. So it was a recorded version, and then the HBO Bella Donna Tour live version. Right after that, we have yet another copy. This I got some time ago as signed. Can't even tell. It's awful. It looks like somebody had signed it. It's not Stevie, but I was young and I didn't know better, and somebody didn't give it to me, but it was like $15-20, and I was a sucker. So it's like she supposedly had signed it, and then immediately somebody put plastic over it, so it's almost like there's two signatures. Two not for real signatures. But I kept up my collection because, again, there was a period of time where I thought, oh my goodness, I have my first signature, and so I kind of keep this for posterity like that. Also, this single has what I keep talking about, which is a spider in the center that we would pop out so that we could play it on the needle spindle that is normally reserved for your 33 LPs. Let me just pop this in, because not every record player that came out back in the day had a little converter. So we'd have to pop these in so that we'd be able to play our singles like this. I keep meaning to pull these out. I know most of you who are watching me knows what those are, but there's probably a lot of you who don't know what that is. So, again, same thing as the first one I just showed you, but this one had the faux autograph. I just keep it for what it is, just kind of for funny sakes. Following that right up is the first different cover that we have. This one is out of Italy. Another beautiful photograph. The back photo of Bella Donna, and this on the back just has the front cover of Bella Donna, and this is Edge of 17 again with this has leather and lace as a B-side, so kind of a double hits on this one, because both leather and lace and Bella Donna Edge of 17 had been singles, so in Italy they just put two onto 145 and released it as such. So really unique there. Right after that we have Germany, and my all-time, this photo, actually in a magazine which is called Rockline, is the first ever photo that I ever got of Stevie Nicks out of a magazine that really just started the obsession. I had it pinned up on my wall. I had it in a photo album. I currently still have the original in my photo albums. with the newer version, and now there are plentiful outtakes from the session. But this photo really captivated me, the whole imagery, the whole kind of gypsy and shawls and scarves and the feather and the little beret and the rose and just all the symbolism. And so I'm very fond of this cover because that was my first collectible picture of Stevie that I kept from a magazine, cut out, and just kind of started wanting to find more photos. So it was really fun to come across this one. And this is Edge of 17 with the B-side of Outside the Rain. Again from, what did I just say? Sorry, Germany. On the WIA label. Following suit, Spain also used this as a cover. Same photo. Same B-side. They used it on both sides instead of the last one that had this as a... So this was Germany, this is Spain. Not much difference. Font, everything. WIA. Just the backs are different. And as I said, Edge of 17, still with Outside the Rain. Right on the heels of that, I brought up in the last video with the leather and lace, I believe, that unique photo that we're talking about. This is also a very unique picture sleeve. Just the whole scheme of it, the coloring, everything is very, very different. And this is out of Belgium. And this is Edge of 17, backed with Outside the Rain. Very unique record cover. Bella Donna cover on the back. Out of Belgium. Edge of 17, backed with Outside the Rain, plain paper sleeve from South Africa. A little bit variance, like I like to talk about on the label. Even though it still has the green, yellow, and red, it just kind of varies with the font and the vibrancy of the colors. And it's from South Africa, so of course it's different. It's a must-have. So that was it for Edge of 17. Then After the Glitter Fades came out on April 30th, 1982. And the first After the Glitter Fades single that I have is the promo USA, After the Glitter Fades, backed with After the Glitter Fades. This is not a stereo mono, or is it? I stand corrected. Mono and stereo. Promotional only. After the Glitter Fades, backed with After the Glitter Fades from the USA. And then the proper USA release single. After the Glitter Fades, backed with Think About It. Another lovely photo with the blue lamp. Reference in the song Blue Lamp, as I talked about in the last video. The first part of Bella Donna, where it was used on the heavy metal soundtrack. It was supposed to be included on the Bella Donna LP, but did not make the cut. Back of this. So this is the first US single for After the Glitter Fades, backed with Think About It. We have another Canadian single. It is After the Glitter Fades, backed with, I'm pretty sure, Think About It. Correct? Canada. As usual, the plain Canadian sleeve. I think it might be Lindsey or Fleetwood Mac before we see anything Canadian that has a picture sleeve. I think I brought that up prior. Maybe I've missed my mark already, but I'm pretty sure that I'm correct. And the last for Bella Donna, actually no, that's it for Bella Donna. This one was kind of, I wasn't sure where to put this one exactly. The nut that I am, I'd like to really put things in order, but Tom Petty and Stevie did, of Hard Promises, they did the song Insider. And the record came out, Hard Promises, Tom Petty and Hard Promises came out May 5th, 1981. So not long after, sorry, just before, am I right? Oh, sorry, just before Bella Donna came out. But the single did not come out as a picture disc until July of 1982. So technically I should be showing this record far into Mirage, but I have it at the end of Bella Donna because that is when this song came out, even though this record did not come out. But this was a unique picture disc to have in the Stevie collection with Insider. Here, is that upside down? Is that showing right? Insider. So, but this did not come out until, like I said, 1982. But I have it at the tail end of my Bella Donna collection because that is how I store my records. It has to be in a certain order. It's kind of hard for me where to put stuff sometimes. That was it for Bella Donna. I'm going to kind of jump right into Lindsey's so we can kind of shorten this a little bit. I know a lot of you, I don't know, it's kind of, hopefully I have a pretty diverse crowd here for who, you know, we all love Fleetwood Mac in general, Stevie, Lindsey, everybody. Law and Order came out shortly after Bella Donna, October 16th, 1981. It was Lindsey's first solo endeavor, just like it was for Stevie. And it's not one of my favorites. I just almost feel like he was kind of put on the spot to make something. And he, just like Stevie, he had a lot of creative material. And though he and Christine had the most songwrite credits on any Fleetwood Mac album that came out, Stevie always kind of got jilted a little bit. Chris or Lindsey always had more on an album, but you know, much like Stevie, Lindsey had a lot of material. And even though I'm a huge fan of the song Trouble, and I even like It Was I, Mary Lee Jones, Visitor, I like a lot of singles, but as a whole, the album just kind of falls flat for me. And he just almost feels really disconnected from it. And again, I don't know if he was just tired, like I keep making a joke about that, but legitimately, I mean, you know, I think artists just kind of, they're not even so much in a creative slump as that they're just cranking out the stuff because the studio asks them of it or it's expected of them or whatever the case may be. And it's not to put down the album whatsoever. It's just, it's not for me one of my favorites. Although, as I say, Trouble is a top 3 of Lindsey songs. But the album as a whole just didn't really sound like Lindsey to me. It just didn't sound like his best foot forward. How about that? But starting off with Lindsey singles, not too much to show in here. A lot is very similar, but his first single was Trouble. The album again came out October 16th, 1981. It included Christine McVie and Mick Fleetwood, so there's a lot of contribution from, again, more Fleetwood Mac, no John or Stevie. None of Lindsey's albums have any Stevie on it, but oftentimes they have Christine, John, and or Mick. So the first single, Trouble, came out in the same month as the LP did. And so the first single that I have is the Asylum promotional issue of Trouble, Back to Trouble, out of the United States. Now, I'm not clear as to why there are some on Asylum and Mercury. I really not done my homework on that. I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure there's some marriage or some connection between Mercury and Asylum, but I don't really know that label as well. I kind of went through a phase where I went real label happy. Just labels in general, just I found very interesting. Yet somehow I completely ignored this whole marriage. But some of Lindsey's singles are on Asylum and some are on Mercury. So there's obviously a connection. The United States picture release was this picture, which is the cover of Law and Order. Not one of, it's an unusual photo. I love it. It was taken by George Horrell, who was a famous photographer for classic Hollywood cinema. If you can conjure up any image in your mind of Rita Hayworth or Jean Harlow or any of the film noir black and white beauties of 30s and 40s cinema, chances are the image in your head is a photograph taken by Hurrell. Hurrell did work with Lindsey Buckingham and later Fleetwood Mac for the Mirage cover, and in this session, George Hurrell really wanted to photograph Lindsey Buckingham in the vein of Johnny Weissmuller, who for you youngins was the original Tarzan in the 1930s and 40s, or 1940s for sure. So he just kind of wanted to give Lindsey a certain look, and the Hollywood legend that George decided to kind of compare or profile Lindsey against was Johnny. And it does come across. It really, if you see more of these, which I have plenty more to show you when I get to them in the album, there really is not so much a striking similarity, but definitely captured in the same way that Hurrell had captured Johnny Weissmuller. So, just kind of a little trivia on that. So, Trouble, back with Mary Lee Jones, was the first U.S. release for Lindsey. A different issue, I guess maybe it come out later as the record progressed to be a hit. This was a pretty big hit. I don't know where it peaked for Lindsey, but I know it kind of ebbed and flowed. It kind of came. So I want to say this was probably his second release, again out of the USA, without a picture sleeve though, but it's the same thing as Trouble, back with Mary Lee Jones again, but just the regular Asylum Elektra label. Canadian version, Asylum Records, not even a Canadian sleeve, but it is out of Canada. It's The Trouble with Mary Lee Jones. Canada, a later date one, and we've come across one of these before, which is a gold standard. So it was Trouble. So this probably came out much later, probably a while later, maybe even after another Fleetwood Mac release, because it was such a hit. So they put Trouble back with It Was I for gold standard, which to me, as I had mentioned before, for the prior gold standards, kind of struck me as like a 2-for-1 45. So it's kind of like two hits back to back for the price of one single. So that was out of Canada, and I think probably a later release, maybe around the time Mirage came out, or maybe around the time Lindsey's second solo LP came out in 1984. That's not too many years later. That's probably when they came out with this one. On the Mercury label, so completely different label, as you can see. This is out of Australia. And it was Trouble, back with This Is How We Do It in LA as a B-side. Completely different label. Plain paper packaging. Out of Germany again, Trouble, back with This Is How We Do It in LA. Got the Johnny photo again. And a little bit of variance again on the label, likely because it's Germany, but definitely on Mercury. Trouble out of France. We have the same image again, same photo, or same label look. And then the little bit different coloring. Kind of a simple back. So that was out of France. Then we have Trouble from Japan. What do we have? My favorite. The Japanese single sleeve, separate from the record. Completely different picture, completely different vibe versus these ones. This really gives an entirely different vibe as far as I'm concerned. Stevie's singles, even when there's a different photo, there's still a fluid vibe, which is a weird observation. Maybe it'll make sense to you, or I just sound silly. But sometimes they'll come out with the photo, and it's fine. The photo's great. Nothing wrong with the photo, but it just completely changes the feel of the song with it. And again, I think that's part of also why I like 45s and LPs and records in general, is that when we would get the records way back in the day, we would just pour over this. We would listen to it regular under our headphones, what have you. We would just kind of look at the images. That's how we got to know our artists before the internet. There were magazines, of course, but seeing the stuff, this is what we had at home. Not everybody bought magazines. And you just kind of get a feel for the song and the artist, and the two mesh together. And if I had had this before I had the other ones, it just would have, I don't know, there's just kind of two different tones to the song if you're looking at this picture versus that picture. Let me know in the comments if you agree, if that's a weird observation or not. And this single has, let's see, is this I think this is a regular release. It is. So it is not a white label. And this is kind of peculiar because this is out of Japan, but there is no Japanese on this whatsoever. Nothing. Other than made in Japan. And tiny little letters here. Which I found very peculiar. Next we have an unknown, because I did not mark this. I'm not sure where this is from, but it is Trouble with I Will Tell You Now. I'll have to look on Discogs. Different with the small hole, small cutout. Possibly a South Africa release. Interesting that I don't have that marked. Trouble from Holland, back with I'll Tell You Now. Looks very 80s to me. Kind of matinee with I like his name across that small little change in the cover art and how the layout. I like the picture smaller. This makes a little difference. And the label for that one. Again, out of Holland, out of Italy. And we're back to a large photo. Very similar to the US releases. Back with I'll Tell You Now. Almost exactly the same as the last 45 as far as the look of the label. I had a single for Stevie Nicks. I believe it was Leather and Lace that I think had Christopher Cross on the backside. Pardon me, this one is similar to that. In fact, I think I got it at the same time. Pardon me, and this is Trouble back with Living Eyes by the Bee Gees. So a strange little thing that came out of Italy. Two completely different labels. So we have Lindsey's under Mercury, and we have the Bee Gees under RSO. So again, much like that first one I'd shown you, Stevie, I think these were possibly jukebox singles, to be sold overseas, to try and get 2 United States hits under one license overseas, possibly. Just my best guess. And a simple plain sleeve for this. Kind of unique though. Trouble back with I'll Tell You Now. So lots of Trouble got a lot of distribution. This is from Spain. So kind of unlike Stevie, again, now I don't necessarily have them all, more than likely close to, But you can see that Trouble already has quite a few more singles than, say, like Edge of 17 did. Now, there are 2 singles that came off of Lindsey's for the USA, and 2 singles that came off for the UK. So technically 4 singles. Now, I know for a fact that Trouble and It Was I were definitely United States releases. The Visitor and Mary Lee Jones were UK specific releases, but because so many of those songs are on the back as the B-side, vice versa, I guess all 4 songs were released. But for the United States, I believe the only 2 singles that were legit released for the US were Trouble and It Was I. With whatever, of course, B-side. But out of Spain, it was Trouble, backed with I'll Tell You Now. Very similar to all the other ones we've seen from overseas. Again, another later release. Spun Gold, Trouble, backed with It Was I, had probably come out at a later date. It was probably maybe much later. Maybe closer to like 86 or so. Or 84, it's just hard to say. But again, probably a double hit because It Was I was a second single. And so they put Trouble and It Was I as one single, so kind of a super buy 45 to get it resurge in popularity. So then we're coming to the It Was I singles. So the first one that I have is It Was I. We're back with It Was I from the USA. White label promotional. Just the normal Elektra Asylum sleeve. It Was I, backed with It Was I from Canada. Canadian sleeve. I believe the original Canadian single was supposed to have It Was I, back with Love From Here, Love From There. But this one is It Was I, backed with It Was I as a promotional copy. And then It Was I out of Holland. All the same picture. Almost identical to another one that we had seen. But it was Trouble, backed with, I think, Mary Lee Jones. But verbatim, I mean almost exactly the same spotting, everything, and including the label. So very little until we'd seen that Japanese single as far as photos were concerned. They really used the hell out of this one. Spain, same thing. It Was I, backed with This Is How We Do It in LA. Interesting that underneath it's in Spanish as well. I believe on the single it is not. It's only in English. It's not translated. Which I think is kind of interesting. This is a very nice texture, really nice paper. One of the nicer made paper of all the ones I've shown you. This is one of the nicer papers and just copies. It just looks more alive, or just really nice. Mary Lee Jones, back with, so this would be the UK single. It Was I had come out in March of 1982. The Visitor and Mary Lee Jones, I'm not entirely sure when those singles hit the UK. But Mary Lee Jones, backed with September Song, which was a very unusual B-side, as far as I'm concerned. Pretty deep cut for the album. Came out in the UK. No picture sleeve. Silver label, which is unusual. Again, we're back to a different cover. Mary Lee Jones, backed with September Song. So up until Japan, we've used another photo. Now the picture that was on the Japan single, this is from the same sitting. This, however, is not. But it's the back side. Another unusual photo This is The Visitor. This is from the UK. The Visitor back with A Satisfied Mind. Now we're back to the visuals that I had mentioned a lot during the Tusk photos. This is Larry Vigon. Not sure I'm saying his name correctly, but this is the artwork of his with photography by Peter Beard, though there is no credit. But this is very similar, if you notice, including even some of the pictures, like this one in particular, that were used in Tusk. So this has a real throwback to the Tusk artwork, which makes it one of my favorites because it just kind of ties in Lindsey's aesthetic, I should say. I don't really feel that these ones really kind of were, even though he went and used it, obviously. I mean, I would imagine that Lindsey has the final say, and Stevie does, as to what their cover art is. I'm sure there's a lot of push and input from the label, but that Lindsey chose this all the way for the cover, all the singles and stuff like this, using this, or having this done for some of the, I'm surprised a little bit more of this wasn't used on some of the US singles, some of the sooner singles that came out. I mean, not this in particular, but just this concept, this kind of, to kind of tie everything in. But that's just me. And then again, a different photo, I believe the same one that was used on the Japanese single, the specific, somewhat deer in the headlights look of his. I say that with love. The photo that was on the B side or back side of One-on-Ones is now the front side for The Visitor, backed with A Satisfied Mind. And this is out of Holland. This shot I like of Lindsey. The cover and lyrics. Wrapping it up with the last couple, we have a very unique sampler. There's a couple of these that I have. I think I had one with, did I have one with Rumors? Pretty sure I did. And I have one coming up with Mirage. But then there is a 4-track single, which was unusual. And besides those ones I tell you from Thailand, or I think is where I have those ones that are kind of bootleg, but there's a couple that have come out from countries a little bit better quality, a little bit better sound. It's hard to get 4 singles on a 45, and that really condenses the sound. And but these sound pretty good. And this was a sampler out of the UK that consisted of The Visitor, Mary Lee Jones, It Was I, and Johnny Stew. Now, this isn't a promotional record. It was just a sampler off the album sent out to, I don't know, for purchase or for radio stations. Hard to say, because nowhere on it does it say promotional. So I want to say that it's just a general purchase people could make in the UK. And this is the sleeve it came in. And if you notice, you play this one at 33. So you got a cleaner sound, because obviously playing at 45, it would just zip right through. So when you play it at 33, it's a little bit slower. You can compress all the music onto there and get a clear sound just like you would off a 45 with one song, or a record that was with less room but played at 33. You get a clearer sound. So a little care and thought was put into this one. And last, for Lindsey, we have Johnny Stew, Backed with Trouble, from France. Plain sleeve, simple label, and a hearty amount for Lindsey Buckingham for his first endeavor, if I do say so myself. The pile for Lindsey was quite a bit larger than the pile for Stevie for Bella Donna, which I think is kind of interesting. So kind of hated to rush through this, but again, there's so much that's so similar for Lindsey, so it just kind of didn't feel like really going over too much. The next thing we're going to start in on is Mirage, and the next video I have with Mirage, I will be announcing a giveaway for an item that will be happening on or around Easter. So look out for that. And yeah, please comment and let me know some of the things that I asked, if you found any differences like I did, that you liked the sound or the photo, or again, if you noticed that when you would listen to a record and would look at a certain picture or the cover, did you kind of get a vibe and a feel for the record of music that came with it? Thank you again so much for your time and for joining me and letting me do these. And I hope you have a great night. Good night.